TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. U.S. President Donald Trump secures the release of dual Israeli-American national Edan Alexander from Hamas captivity. Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar warns that any attempt to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state would provoke Jerusalem to a unilateral response. The Islamic Republic of Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei claims that Israel will ultimately disappear. All attention was focused today on the release of American-Israeli hostage Edan Alexander, who endured 584 days in Hamas captivity as part of a side deal that was brokered by Qatar and Egypt, proclaimed to be a goodwill gesture by the Islamist terror group in the Gaza Strip ahead of President Donald Trump's trip to the Middle East. Ahead of Edan Alexander's release, President Trump posted on his True social media page, quote, "I am happy to announce that Edan Alexander, an American citizen who has been held hostage since October 2023, is coming home to his family." He further voiced gratitude to those involved in making this monumental news happen, while also highlighting that the step was taken in good faith towards the United States, and expressed hope that the release of Edan Alexander would constitute a first of those final steps necessary to end this brutal conflict, which the Islamist Hamas launched on October 7th of 2023 when it caught Israel by surprise and murdered almost 1,200 mostly civilians, wounded over 4,800 others, and kidnapped over 250 Israelis and foreigners, to include men and women, infants, children, and elderly, with no remorse. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, the Prime Minister's office released a statement in which it revealed, quote, "The U.S. has informed Israel of Hamas's intention to release soldier Edan Alexander as a gesture to the Americans without conditions or anything in exchange." The statement further underscored that the U.S. has conveyed to Israel that this is expected to lead to negotiations for the release of hostages according to the original Witkoff framework, which Israel has already accepted. And while circulating reports indicated that an Israeli delegation was set to travel to Egypt for a new round of negotiations, the Prime Minister's office stressed that in accordance with Israel's policy, the negotiations will be held under fire based on the commitment to achieve all of the objectives of the war. Meanwhile, during a joint press conference with visiting German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul, Jerusalem's top diplomat Gideon Sa'ar expressed Israel's position with regard to the prolonged war in the Gaza Strip.
Only Hamas is responsible for the war and for the continuation of this war. Hamas terror state must be not allowed to exist. Otherwise, Hamas will continue to be a nightmare for Israel's security and the stability of the region as a whole. Hamas must be defeated.
Berlin's top diplomat, for his part, stressed that while Germany remains resolutely on Israel's side, it does not believe that the conflict with the Palestinians can be resolved by military means alone.
In fact, I do not believe that this conflict can be permanently resolved by military means. Nevertheless, it is urgently necessary that Hamas is disarmed and that it can no longer have military control over Gaza. Israel has an absolutely legitimate security interest here, and I can only call on all partners, including the neighboring states in the Gulf region, to support it. Germany will clearly stand by Israel's side here.
Amid expressed intentions by France and other European nations to recognize a Palestinian state, irrespective of reality on the ground, Foreign Minister Sa'ar warned that such a move would provoke Israel to unilateral actions in response.
There have been talks about an initiative to unilaterally recognize a Palestinian state. Such initiatives are not constructive, but counterproductive. It will only serve as a price for Hamas terror. Any attempt to do so unilaterally will only harm future prospects for a bilateral process and will push us for unilateral actions in response.
Jerusalem's top diplomat went on to address the threats emanating from the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Iran is the most dangerous state in the world. Its extremist regime spreads terrorism through its proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. The most dangerous regime must not be allowed to obtain the world's most dangerous weapon. Its uranium enrichment facilities must be dismantled. Iran must be prevented from obtaining nuclear weapons.
It is important to note that the U.S. and Iranian delegations held a fourth round of nuclear talks in the Sultanate of Oman yesterday, during the course of which the wide-ranging gaps between the positions of Washington and Tehran were amplified. Ahead of the talks, in an exclusive interview to the American-based Breitbart News, White House chief negotiator Steve Witkoff expressed the Trump administration's red line.
That's our red line. No enrichment, that means dismantlement. It means no weaponization. And it means that Natanz, Fordow, and Esfahan, those are their three enrichment facilities, have to be dismantled.
President Trump's envoy went on to tell Breitbart News that the Ayatollah regime had claimed that it did not want a nuclear weapon.
If that's how they feel, then their enrichment facilities have to be dismantled. They cannot have centrifuges. They have to downblend all of their fuel that they have there, send it to a faraway place, and they have to convert to a civil program if they want to run a civil program.
Despite the negotiations, Steve Witkoff emphasized that the Islamic Republic of Iran did not have a choice on the matter unless it was willing to test President Trump, which he emphasized would be an unwise thing to do. Meanwhile, following the fourth round of negotiations in Oman, the Ayatollah regime's top diplomat, Abbas Araghchi, acknowledged that the talks were more serious and straightforward.
I can state that compared to the previous three rounds, the negotiations were much more serious and straightforward. We have now moved significantly away from general frameworks and entered into more specific issues. We can now say that both sides have a better understanding of each other's positions. Many of the main points of disagreement have now been more thoroughly discussed. Their dimensions have been further clarified. There is now a better mutual understanding, and the positions have somewhat come closer. I can state that.
Araghchi continued by expressing the Ayatollah regime's dismay over the public statements that were made by U.S. officials, noting that they had demanded that those statements would stop immediately.
Unfortunately, we are hearing contradictory and opposing positions from the American side, especially in the media and public sphere, which do not help the negotiation process at all. Today, one of the topics we discussed was precisely this issue, that such an approach is not in the interest of the negotiations and must be corrected.
The Iranian foreign minister went on to express the Ayatollah regime's unequivocal position that enrichment is non-negotiable.
From our point of view, enrichment is an issue that must definitely continue, and there is absolutely no room for compromise there. Its dimensions, scale, level, or amount might be subject to certain limitations, for confidence-building purposes, for instance, as was done in the past. But the principle of enrichment itself is simply non-negotiable. The same goes for the issue of sanctions. What we mean by negotiations, and what we intend from the negotiations, is naturally the lifting of sanctions, which under any circumstances remains one of the fundamental pillars of our negotiating position.
Meanwhile, in Tehran,
Death, death to America. Death, death to America. Death, death to Israel. Death, death to Israel.
the Islamic Republic's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, claimed that despite Israel's show of force against Iran's regional proxies and other Islamist terror groups, the state of Israel will ultimately disappear.
The falsehood is making a show for a few days, putting itself on display, but it is bound to disappear. It will certainly disappear. There is no doubt about that. These appearances we are witnessing now, the actions they are taking and the advances they are making in Syria or elsewhere, are not signs of strength, but signs of weakness, and Allah willing, they will lead to even greater weakness.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. I would like to urge you to take a moment to pray for the hostages who've endured now 584 days in Hamas captivity. Pray also for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. And separately, if you've been blessed by TV7 Israel, which is exclusively funded by our viewers, please consider supporting our productions with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. I'm Jonathan Hessen, wishing you a Shavua Mevorach. God willing, we'll see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.